just as the mind is a nice generalized term that we can use for things like the intellect, thought processes, intelligence, and attitudes towards things, the heart is a nice generalized term we can use for the seat of emotion, or where we tend to think of as the seat of emotion or feelings. Now, when we say playing from the heart, we mean playing with feeling. Play with feeling. That's all. That's all great. But there are two disconnects that can hinder our ability to play with feeling. And these two disconnects are what we're going to talk about. Today we're going to talk about the first one. The first disconnect is I may have intense feelings. I may be feeling intently what I want to do with a song, but how is it coming across? Just because I feel is an indication, but can result in nothing being translated. Why? Because what I'm feeling needs to be translated through technique, through playing technique. And what tools or techniques do I have available to me to translate the emotional depth that I'm experiencing? So there's the gap between what I feel and how to translate what I feel using the tools and techniques available to me as a thereminist to create music that has an emotional foundation. If you've seen earlier tutorials, ones that I did before the theremin even existed, you know that I advocate starting from a mechanical standpoint, looking at the mechanics of a particular technique, and then as I begin to understand the mechanics of it and what it's capable of, I naturally progress into the interpretive or intuitive area and the variations of that technical tool that I can then use intuitively, interpretively, to convey emotion or anything else I might want to. So we're going to begin from a mechanical standpoint. Let's look at what we have available to us in terms of technique or tools that the theremin can help us with. There are only two, just two, built into the theremin itself, and that is volume and pitch. I can go from soft to loud, from loud to soft. Any variation in between, I can turn it on, I can turn it off. That's volume. Pitch is this. All the theremin provides me with is a continuous tone that varies in frequency or pitch. That is what I have available to me that is inherent in the theremin itself. I have other tools that I can use as a player that I bring to the theremin. Articulation, that is how I define a particular note. We can refer to a note in three phases, and I have done this in earlier videos as well. The attack, the sustain, and the decay of the note. The beginning, the middle, and the end of the note. The beginning, how I start it, sharp or soft. How I sustain it, is it just a long tone before I end? The length of whatever I do in the middle, and how I end it, sharp, soft. That's articulation. Intonation is what I do with pitches. I can choose to be as close to being on pitch as I want to be, but I can also use sliding into pitches, going slightly off pitch, or sliding from a higher note to a pitch, from a lower note to a pitch. So the intonation, how I define the character of each note through pitch, is intonation. Then there's vibrato, that is the movement of my hand, however you'd like to produce it, that takes me from a point from the center of the pitch to slightly sharp and slightly flat. That is essentially what vibrato is. So I can use vibrato, and vibrato can be an incredibly expressive tool to help with the emotional depth of a song. I also have the tempo, that is the speed with which I play a particular piece, or the variations in speed in a particular piece can also help with an emotional foundation. And finally, I have rhythm, the pattern or duration or the stress on consecutive notes that I can vary as well when I play. So with these tools, I can now begin to see what they actually can help me with, in and of themselves, from a mechanical standpoint. In order to do this, there's going to be crossover. Of a necessity, I can only demonstrate variations in volume if I have at least just one consistent pitch. There must be a sound or, or volume is non-existent. So too, I can only demonstrate variations in pitches if there's at least one constant volume. You get the idea. So while it's unnecessary to always use melody, when I do use melody, I'm going to use one that I believe nearly everyone knows. And when you practice this on your own, use it for a number of reasons. I'm going to use a melody that first appeared in 1761 by imbue in Paris, France. And the original title of it was Ah, vous dirai-je maman, or Ah, shall I tell you mother. It was without lyrics, but this melody so captivated Mozart that he created 12 variations on it, which were published in Vienna in 1785. And finally, the lyrics for this came from a poem by the English poet Jane Taylor. Her little children's poem called The Star first appeared in Rhymes for the Nursery, published in 1806. We now know it as Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And it's a great one to use because from the standpoint of isolating things like rhythm or isolating things like volume, where I may have to demonstrate the song, the meter of the song is so measured and so consistent. It is essentially 8 beats with only 7 sounding. Listen. Ba, 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 ba. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, and so on. You get the idea. Its meter is consistent throughout every single line. So I'm going to use it when melody is necessary. Here we go. In attempting to isolate these various techniques, I'm going to let them speak for themselves, and I'm going to leave the interpretation up to you. In other words, I will do nothing to impart emotional qualities to these techniques. I'm simply going to try to demonstrate them in as neutral a fashion as I can. However, it's very, very important that you listen carefully. Listen carefully for what I call the feeling tone of these techniques. The feeling tone, another way to put it, would be potential emotional markers. An example of that would be when you hear a fast tempo, what type of emotional marker, potential emotion does this suggest to you as compared, let's say, with a slow tempo, and so on. Soft volume to loud volume. So, try to stay as aware as possible. Interpret for yourselves potential emotional markers through all of these techniques. Now, of course, the first one I described is volume. So I have to, of necessity, choose a pitch, obviously, and then try variations only in volume as much as possible. Emphasize the volume, and you see what types of feeling tones are produced as you hear the variations. So I'll choose a note. I'll try to stay on the same pitch as much as possible, and I know you, as well as I, know it's nearly impossible to just keep that pitch as pure. So you're going to hear a little wavering every now and then. Volume. Just finding a nice pitch. Okay, and I'll use that very steady 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, steady, as neutral a rhythm as I can give you for Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. want to rewind that and listen to it again. Listen to the loudness and softness. See if you can interpret for yourself potential emotional markers. Let's move on to pitch. With pitch, I'll attempt to keep the same basic volume and the same type of just basic articulation and concentrate the emphasis on pitch and variations in pitch without vibrato. Let's try it. Listen, see if you can determine feeling tones of variations of emotional markers. That one's a little bit tougher to discern those types of things. I'll try one last variation. Do any of those suggest emotional markers? Some you may think, I hear nothing. That's fine. This is your interpretation of these. For articulation, I'll try to concentrate, emphasize just attack, sustain, decay, the beginning, the middle, and end of each note. Try to keep a consistent volume and the basic steady rhythm of the song, and use the pitches of the song for articulation. See what potential emotional markers you can discern. Sort of into that pitch, but you get the idea. What are these variations in pitches? The intonation, the sharp or flat or center of the pitch, how are these affecting the potential emotional markers, the feeling tones of the song? Very strange. Let's explore what variations in vibrato can do to the feeling tones of this melody. A wide or slow vibrato, a narrow or fast vibrato, or working from a spot without vibrato and then easing into it. Let's experiment with that. variations in feel. Oh, listen for variations in feeling, tone, and tempo. That got interesting. On to rhythm. Let's explore the potential that rhythm has to change the feeling, tone, and emotional markers for a song by varying the rhythms. The possibilities there are endless, absolutely endless. There's actually one more disconnect, and it's the gap between what I've just done and what you can do. Exploring this yourself is essential. So, pause the video. Pause it and take a look at this list. This is the list of tools you have: volume, pitch, articulation, intonation, vibrato, tempo, and rhythm. Pause the video and do what I was doing. See what you can do to isolate each one of these techniques or tools and experiment with them. Why? Because there's a difference between your discerning feeling tones by listening to me produce the potential for emotional markers, and between what you can do. What you can do by experimenting and exploring is actually begin to sense potential emotional markers. You need the first-hand experience of experimenting like this. This is what I would term learning the vocabulary of your instrument. Learning what each of these tools can do to aid you in your ability to build an emotional depth and foundation to the songs that you want to play. So pause the video, look at the list, and try it for yourself. I'll be here when you get back. And we're back. Come on, did you pause the video, or did you just keep going? Come on, nobody's watching. Pause the video and do this. Okay? Here's the list again. Good. See you when you get back. In preparation for the next tutorial, I have a homework assignment for you. Do this exploration at least 3 or 4 more times before you come to the next tutorial. Really put your heart in it. Have fun, explore. Really explore the vocabulary of your instrument. And then, after you've used each one in as much isolation as you can, volume, pitch, articulation, and so on, put them together. Play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star using all the techniques you have available to you, and see what happens. Make sure to record yourself. Make sure you do this, because, again, the feeling that you have and the sensations and impulses that you have while playing are going to strike you and affect you in one way. But watching and or listening to yourself afterwards, you're going to be able to be apart, to stand apart from what you were doing, and Listen again for the feeling tone or potential emotional markers that are going to help you really put heart into your song, which we're going to do fully next time I see you.